Hi again, everybody. It's Kevin Donka with Donka Drums on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Today I want to demonstrate an exercise from my book, which is called 1, 2, 3, 4. There is a couple of exercises that I have posted videos for in the past. One was called Fulcrum Freddy, and the other was called Stick Control. They're both by Santa Clara Vanguard. I believe they were both written by Murray Gussick. I'm not sure. But both have concepts that are really important in order to really get stick control and play things the way you want to. So I devised an exercise that kind of puts those two ideas together in 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let me teach you the exercise first, and then we'll go through why it's so important and how it helps you build stick control so well. This exercise is based off a pattern similar to the old hug-a-dug-a-burr or chicken in a roll exercises. Basically this kind of exercise, this feel. But this is the way it goes. Okay, so people play that with 16ths, they play it with rolls, they play it with singles. So I took that pattern, and what we're going to do is we're going to do it 3 different ways with 16th notes. The first time through, we're just going to do hand-to-hand 16ths. 1 E and a 2 and, 3 E and a 4 and, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and 4 and. Now those last 3 flams, the last 4 eighth notes, the first is a tap, then a left flam, then 2 right flams. So that's really like a paradiddle. Right, left, right, right. And then you play the same thing on the left. 1 E and a 2 and, 3 E and a 4 and, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and 4 and, 1 E and a 2 and, 3 E and a 4 and, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and 4 and. So left paradiddle that time. Now, very important, watch my video on how to keep your grace notes down, the difference between downstrokes and legato strokes. Because on this exercise, we want to make sure that we're going 1 E and a 2. Those first 2 rights are legatos, and then the third one is a downstroke. We need to hold that down because we're playing an 8th note flam after that. So you got legato, legato, downstroke, legato, legato, downstroke. And you want to make sure you hold that down so that you have good flams. Okay? And the same thing with when you're doing the paradiddle form flams, make sure your grace notes are down. Now there are no accents anywhere in this exercise, and it's designed that way to make sure that you keep your stick heights the way they should be. So let's play this, that first part at 110 beats a minute. We'll do it off the right and then the left, and then we'll break 4 and do it one more time. Here we go. Let's do it at about 6 inches. Again. Okay, so now make sure you're not playing all downstrokes. You want to do nice, easy legato strokes. Except for the ones where we're playing a flam afterwards. Okay, the second time through we do the same thing, but instead of doing hand-to-hand singles 16ths, we do doubles or diddles. Diddle, diddle, dot, chop, diddle, diddle, dot, chop, diddle, 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 paradiddle, diddle, diddle, dot, chop, diddle, diddle, dot, chop, diddle, 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 dot, chop, 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 chop. Now, let's play that just by itself 2 times through. Here we go. 1, break 4 in between. 1, 2, ready, go. Again. Now, I want to take just a second and explain something. Somebody asked on one of my videos, why am I sitting so far back from my pad? And even when I stand, why do I have my arms so far away from my body? And the answer is, for the most part, I teach marching percussion. I teach rudimental percussion. And when you strap on a marching drum, that's pretty much where it is. Now, if you don't play that way, if you tend to play a drum kit, or if you play with a sling and it's closer to your body, then of course you want to make sure your body is as close to the drum as it usually is. Okay, so it might be worthwhile if you do something more than marching percussion. might be worthwhile to practice this both ways, because actually this is a little bit different muscle movement than this. Your arms are extended more, you've got a little bit different movement. So it's important to set your practice structure up the way you will be performing, so that you're practicing the way you want to perform. And if you perform in different venues and different kinds of setups, you have to practice all of those different ways. Okay, so let's take the first 2 times through, the single strokes and the double strokes. Here we go. Nice and easy. Whoops, let's start again. Nice legato strokes. Doubles. One more time. Those are nice and even. Everything should have the same tone quality. Okay, third time through, we're going to do 4 on a hand. Now, because we're doing 4 on a hand, it's actually going to switch hands each time you play the pattern. So 1 E and a left, right, left, 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 right, left, right, 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 left, 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 right, left, right, right. So those 4 eighth notes at the end with the 3 flams, those stay in the paradiddle form. So let's play that. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Whoops, didn't do a paradiddle form. All right, let's do all 3 together. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, now, the next thing we do is we play all 3 of those patterns back to back without the eighth note flams. So you do 2 counts of single stroke 16ths, 2 counts of double stroke 16th diddles, and 2 counts of 4 on a hand, and then the right, left, right, right flams, and then you repeat it. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 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 1 E and a 2 E and a. Okay, so let's try that, just that part. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. One more time. Watch your tempo. Mine wasn't perfect that time. Okay, so let's play the whole first half of the exercise here. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Whoops. Okay, so let's take a minute here. We can see how we're getting stick control, right? You've got singles, you've got doubles, you've got 4 on a hand. But what about the fulcrum part, the fulcrum Freddy exercise? How does that fit into this? When you play this just a little, this might be too slow to understand the way we've been doing it. But when you play it a little bit faster, you're going to have your fingers on the stick all the time. You're not bouncing, I mean, you're allowing rebound, but you're not doing any bounce strokes when you do your singles. But when you do your doubles, you got 1 downward stroke and you've got a double bounce, right? You pull those fingers away and let that bounce on the doubles. Right? And on the fours, we've got to learn how to do that fast four at once. Now, when I do the singles, I tend to have my fulcrum on my right hand mostly between my index finger and my thumb. When I do my doubles, it moves back, and I do a little bit more with my middle finger. Just allows me to get a better double stroke. When I do the fours, I actually use my back two fingers more than I use the rest because I'm opening and closing my hand. I'm not letting my fingers off the stick. Please watch my previous videos if you don't understand that. But you're opening and closing your hand with your fingers still on the stick. Even if you're upside down, the fingers stay on the stick. So I'm going from index finger to middle finger to back finger with now the middle fingers, now the back fingers. Now, as far as my left hand goes, I'm simply applying a little bit more pressure with my thumb. From singles, there's almost no pressure with my thumb. The doubles, I'm applying a little bit of pressure on that inside edge of my thumb and pulling my fingers away. When I do the four, I'm putting a little pressure on the underside of my finger and the inside of my thumb. So that's how the fulcrum is changing. So let's play it a little bit faster. Let's go up to 120. And you'll be able to feel that difference as you play along. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Now, each section, you'll be able to practice the different fulcrum positions. In that last section, the fourth section, you don't have time with eighth notes between. You have to switch directly from front to middle to back. Front, middle, back on the right hand. And on the left hand, of course, you just change your amount of pressure. Now, that's the whole exercise as far as the first half goes. But notice it was called 1, 2, 3, 4. There were the threes. Well, there's a whole second half of the exercise that's done with sextuplets. Okay, let's take this back down to, let's take it back to 110 because it's going to be too slow otherwise. All right, so the whole second section is done with sextuplets. Again, we start with singles. Nice legato singles. And we're not letting our hands off the stick. We're not changing our fulcrum and allowing bounce until we, if we were to do it this fast, that would be different. But at this speed, we can keep our fingers on the stick. Then we go to triplet rolls. So you're going back and forth between triplets and eighth notes, but you're doubling them. Okay, now, if you can, even though you're playing triplet rolls, instead of thinking da 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 da, hear them as sextuplets. It'll help you get those diddles even. Now, the third time through, we do three-stroke rolls. And again, for the three strokes, I'm using primarily my ring finger and even my pinky. And on this hand, unlike when I do the fours, I apply a little bit of pressure under my finger. When I do the threes, all the pressure is coming from the inside of my thumb. Like this whole inside and the bottom part of my thumb. So the exercise is exactly the same. First time through, it's singles. Second time through, it's doubles. And then it's triples. And then the fourth is you run them all together. Okay, so this one is much harder. If you are not an advanced player, stick with just the first half with the 1s, the 2s, and the 4s. If you are an advanced player, add in the second half. So let's play just the second half right now. Let's go back up to 120. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Remember, no accents. Now, one note here. You are not going to be able to play good 3s and 4s, and maybe not. And by the way, those are a middle speed diddle, so you need to have a little more control. You can't just bounce them. But anyway, you're not going to be able to do the faster and multiple bounces if you have a really crappy drum pad. So if your pad is really mushy or really old and doesn't have much rebound, you need to play on something harder, maybe a tabletop. Maybe you get the kinds of sticks with the rubber tips. I know ProMark has some Scott Johnson sticks with the rubber blue tip, and they are wonderful. I know Vic Firth also makes the Hardiman, I forget what they're called. They got the big rubber tips, but for my taste, those sticks, they're front heavy. They don't feel like regular drumsticks. The ProMark Scott Johnson model feels pretty much the same weight as a regular drumstick, and they have a pretty good amount of rebound, so you can play them on a counter or whatever. Anyway, if you're not going that route, make sure you have a pad that has great rebound. I've just recently started endorsing the RD pads, the Rudimental Drummer pads. These are phenomenal. They have the real heads on them. You can go, if you just Google Rudimental Drummer pads, you'll find it. But I believe the website is www.rudimentaldrummers.xyz/pads. These are wonderful. If you order the drum corps pad, the 13-inch or 14-inch, use a discount code DONKA2020. In other words, DONKA 2020, and you'll get a 10% discount off the 13 or 14-inch drum corps pad. Anyway, the Zymox pads are fine because they have a lot of rebound. A lot of other good pads out there, but you can't use the really, really mushy ones if you want to play, you know, good 3-stroke rolls, unless you're going to be playing from up here. But the whole point is to be able to play them at any level. Okay? So, now, let's put the entire exercise together. The first half and the second half. We'll play it at 120. Here we go. No accents, nice and relaxed. Okay, now, the other thing you're going to notice is that when you're going back and forth between the doubles and the 4s, your actual overall stroke movement is eighth notes, quarter note, eighth notes, quarter note. And the same with the doubles and the 3 strokes. You're going to go from triplets to eighth notes. 1 and a 2 and a 1 and 2 and 1 and a 2 and a 1 and 2 and. So you've also got to deal with the fact that your overall arm and stroke movement change. So let's play this again a little bit faster this time. Let's do it at 126. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. more time. Sing it up to 136. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Whoops, sorry. 1, 2, ready, go. Now, when you get to the single strokes with the sextuplets, this might be fast enough that you might actually start to rebound those, instead of keeping your fingers on the stick. So just for fun, let's take just the fourth section of each exercise and run them together. Okay, here we go. But let's not do the jut, 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 jut until we've done the first and second section together. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, go. You can play around with this any way you want to. Now, a very, very important note real quick before we finish. If, when you're practicing this at different tempos, if you find a tempo where one or more of these things is difficult, spend more time there. Don't say, oh, I can't play it there, and move to a tempo where you can. We all have what we call transition zones, or T-zones. T-zones are where you go from one stroke, like with your fingers on the stick, to bouncing to multiple bounce. Those things change at different tempos, even though you're playing the same thing. And so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we can transition through those spots as smoothly as possible. You've probably heard this from me before, but the transition zone, where you move your hands differently, is very much like a singer. A singer sings in their full voice up until they have to flip over into what they call falsetto. Now, the best singers can switch into falsetto and back into full voice without you really noticing that they've done that. That's usually a person's weak point, but the best singers have made it one of their strong points. So we want to make sure we do that same thing with your T-zones, your transition zones, moving from hands and fingers and wrists and arms, and no matter what you're playing, no matter what the tempo is, you can make a smooth transition. So that's my exercise 1, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully you like this. I will post the pages on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not sure how to do that to YouTube, but you shouldn't actually need the pages. I've gone through this enough step by step that you should know it without them. Anyway, check me out on Facebook and Instagram, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, please do. They're all under the name of Donka Drums. And till next time, have fun.